Hey Puzzle Buddies, it's Bree, and we're back again speed puzzling. Well, kind of, so we'll get into it. This is my first Springbok puzzle. It's 500 pieces. It's called The Fruit Stand, and it's 18 by 23.5 inches when it's complete. So this is another puzzle that I thrifted. So I'm cutting into the tape, and as you notice, it's taped on 3 of the 4 sides. So I was kind of nervous that something would have fallen out. I'm just gonna cut in here and say, if you live in the Metro Atlanta area, you are brunette, you have a black and white dog or cat or a rabbit, and you recently donated this puzzle to Goodwill, I don't want nothing for real. I just want to talk. Because I opened up the puzzle, get into the box, and as you see, a lot of the pieces were kept together. So I start to pull them apart, that's perfectly fine. And then, oh, is that a hair? Okay, no, that's fine. Oh, another hair. Interesting, more than one hair. And then this is where I said, cut the cameras. Because why was this box full of hair and fur? Why was it full of hair and fur? And then did y'all see all that puzzle dust in the bottom of the box? Like, what is going on? So instead of keeping the pieces inside of the box until I was ready to start, it's cut to, kind of emulate, to kind of, reflect an actual speed puzzling competition, I went ahead and put them out on the board because there was no way I was going to dump this out onto my table. So I pretty much knew that I wasn't going to finish this super fast, but my goal for myself was 3 hours because I just kind of want to get used to manipulating pieces that aren't, what I'm used to. So I started with the full flip, and it wasn't too bad. It took me a few minutes. And then I just kind of went with whatever pieces were sticking out to me. So I mostly started with the fruit stand, and I picked out those tomatoes. And as I was putting the tomatoes together, I realized that some of the fruits repeat in the puzzle in different sections. So like there's the tomatoes that are like closest up to the, to like where we're seeing the image from. They're down the front. And then there's some more tomatoes in the like basket behind it. And then even more up on the actual cart or wagon. So I had to kind of pay attention to the size of the fruits to figure out which part of the puzzle it belonged to. I was finding pieces of the American flag here and there, so I kind of put them together when I had them. And then I was mostly focusing on the flowers. So I did the pink flowers, or at least as much as I could. And then I did the purples. And then after the purples, I did some of the white and the yellow flowers. I tried working on the awning that hangs over the wagon because those pieces were pretty easy to pick out. And I thought it would be pretty easy to put together because it's, just one block of shape and there's lines, kind of telling you where what should go. But the stripes, as I was putting together, obviously the stripes can go either this way or that way. Like if you flipped it, it would still be the same direction. Am I making any sense? The point is, I was getting stuck on the awning, so I gave up on that. And something that you guys pointed out in some of my other videos as, advice, pointers, was to just like not get focused on finishing one complete section and kind of bouncing around as I see something. So that's something I tried to focus on this time, was not getting stuck and just moving on to the next texture that pops out to me. So I got the farm stand sign done, most of the chickens, the birds, and a good, kind of bit of that bottom fruit stand. So as I was filling things in, I was mostly kind of getting a lot of pieces off to the right edge of the board. And as I was filling in that side, I'm realizing I knew based off the pieces I had and based off of where I knew the sky had to be, this was getting too tall for my board. So I tried to keep working, but in my mind, I'm like, okay, should I turn this puzzle or should I just leave it alone? I was nervous to turn it because one, I knew where things were, right? Like I had already been working all this time. I knew like I had a pile of this over here and a pile of this over there. And then also I was afraid that if I started to turn it, things would start falling apart or just crumbling or anything like that. But if I didn't rotate it, I ran the risk of the puzzle going over the edge of the table, and I was struggling to reach the sky. And also I knew that at least some of this had to be getting out of frame, so I went ahead and rotated the puzzle. It was a little bit scary, and some of my little piles did get lost, but I did kind of figure things out and get reoriented after a few minutes. So I had been putting together a bit of the border of the sky, but now that it was closer to me, I started with the lighter blues. And then I was kind of going back and forth between the lighter blue sections and then the more purpley yellow parts. Now the sky was very pretty, and it was actually pretty fun to do, but it took me a long time. So now I'm about halfway through that 3-hour time limit that I gave myself, and I was feeling like I was less than halfway through the puzzle, so I was getting a little bit anxious about whether or not I was going to finish within that time limit I gave myself. So I feel like doing this sort of puzzle with this sort of piece cut, it's like you're using like a whole different part of your brain, or like you have to process it much differently than how you would a normal kind of standard puzzle cut. So when it comes to a pretty standard puzzle, even if the pieces are a little bit curved, a little bit slanted, whether the pieces are like all 2 ins and 2 outs, or if some of them are 4 ins or 4 outs or 3s and all that thing, regardless, the puzzle is pretty much on a grid. And as you're working on the puzzle and you get used to kind of like the scale between the image on the box compared to the image on the puzzle, you can pretty much you can map out the pieces as you're going. For example, let's say we're working on a puzzle where part of the image has like a fruit bowl with oranges and limes. And based off of what you've built so far, you know that the next piece that you're looking for has to have a little bit of orange in the, let's say, top right. It has to have a little bit of lime off to the top left, and then the bottom of that piece has to be white for the bowl. And especially if 2 or 3 of the surrounding pieces have already been filled in, you know that this piece has, at least 2 ins or at least 2 outs, or this top one has to be an in and the bottom one has to be an out, that sort of thing. Like you have already essentially built this piece in your mind, and now you just have to go look for it. And with this piece cut being so random, I may know that in order to fill in this next block of space, I need a bit of orange and a bit of lime in some of the bowl. However, this could be 1 piece, or it could be 3 pieces, all making up this one area. So instead of like looking at what I've built and then kind of interpolating, or would be extrapolating, one of the two, rather than like looking at what I've built and then kind of figuring out the piece that I need next and going to look for that piece, I have to look at the pieces and figure out, okay, what might this be a part of and where could this maybe go? I hope that all made sense. But the point is, as I was doing this puzzle, especially trying to do it quickly, I was having to process information differently than how I would normally anticipate to. So I'm recording this a few days after Hurricane Helene hit the East Coast. And I'm sitting here making YouTube videos, so clearly I'm okay. But obviously a lot of people not that far away from us are very much not okay. So that's been very interesting to kind of witness and see what's happening around us. So between the hurricane and then potentially the ports going on strike, well, at this point they have gone on strike. But then also nearby a pool supply warehouse caught on fire. And so there were fumes in the air. Sometimes we were allowed to leave the house. Sometimes we couldn't. We had to shelter in place. Some people had to evacuate. And I think 2 separate counties' water systems went down around Atlanta. So it's been a lot going on, but my family's okay. And I'm very, very grateful for that. And it's just been very hard to watch and hear about so many other places that aren't okay, so it's been a lot. So I'm down now to the last like 75 pieces or so of the puzzle, but they're all green and they're all weird shapes, and I felt like my brain was about to like overheat or something because I feel like I was using so much brain power trying to figure out where these last few pieces went. And then instead of just swiping away a notification on my phone, I accidentally somehow changed the display of the timer. So then that distracted me because at first I was worried that I had accidentally stopped the timer, but it was still going. But then I was distracted because I wanted it to be like the regular view. I did eventually fix it, but that threw me off. I was able to separate out the pieces that were trees versus the pieces that were the wagon, but it was still pretty slow going. But I kept chugging along, and I finally was down to the last couple pieces. And I was done. So 2 hours, 36 minutes, 48 seconds. So like 2 hours and 37 minutes. Now I went into this knowing this was going to be a challenge, and I wasn't particularly anticipating that I'd be very fast. So I'm pretty pleased with the time overall. But also this time isn't that much different than like my normal speed puzzling times. So either I'm getting really, really good, or my other speed puzzle times are entirely too slow. And honestly, possibly, it could be a bit of both. In these shots, I think you can really see just how like odd some of these piece shapes were. But overall, I really don't have any complaints on this puzzle. The pieces were solid. Like, I'm not even kidding. I could probably toss this puzzle around like a frisbee and it would still hold together just fine. I have a couple of ideas for videos that I think would be really fun to do on my channel, but I want to know if you guys have any ideas or suggestions for things that you would want to see. Subscribe if you haven't already and give this video a like. Stay safe out there, and I'll see you in the next one.